Hey, thanks for joining me. Hope you're doing well. Gerardus Mercator was a 16th century Belgian cartographer and geographer who is most renowned for creating the 1569 world map based on a new projection which represented sailing courses of constant bearing as straight lines. In the bottom left corner, we see a close-up of the Arctic, showing what appears to be a large mountain with 4 rivers diverging. This is, in fact, a smaller representation of Mercator's Arctic map titled Of the Northern Lands. On this map, he envisions the center as a large black rock, the Rupes Nigra, surrounded by a great whirlpool into which 4 powerful rivers flow. These rivers divide a large landmass into 4 distinct islands. When the English polymath John Dee wrote to Mercator asking about his sources for this map, Mercator returned with a letter stating, "In the midst of the 4 countries is a whirlpool, into which there empty these 4 indrawing seas which divide the north. Right under the pole there lies a bare rock in the midst of the sea, and it is all of magnetic stone." A giant magnetic rock, exactly at the North Pole. Well, that would explain why all compasses point north, wouldn't it? If we are to look at the false heliocentric system with 2 magnetic poles, we should become very wary very quickly because all compasses point north all the time. If we supposedly live on a globe with a south pole, why is the pole always north? When one travels further in the southern hemisphere, why wouldn't compasses point south? The scientific elite try to keep us in constant confusion and in opposition of diving into the matter, giving us a sort of mental duct tape by telling us there are 3 different poles: a magnetic, a geomagnetic, and a geographic. I can assure you that the more one looks into these poles, the more one realizes it's all bullshit. The North Pole is north, underneath the North Star Polaris, at the center of the flat Earth dome, shining down on Rupes Nigra, or, as I like to call it by its Vedic name, the magnetic Mount Meru. Like many of the ancient systems, Vedic cosmology knew the Earth was flat, with a center axis, envisioned the universe as a sort of round chandelier, with the luminaries revolving above, and most importantly, with a center universal column on which we find Mount Meru. Here it is. In the center of Bhumandala is the circular island of Jambudvipa, which represents Earth, with 9 Varsha subdivisions. In the center stands the cone-shaped Mount Meru, which represents the world axis and is surmounted by the city of Brahma, the universal creator. Could this center landform be the same divided island found in Mercator's map? Could Mount Meru be the Rupes Nigra? And could the city of the god Brahma be a reference to the inner earth city of Shambhalla? The center vortex is conjoined to the axis mundi, hitting Mount Meru with its resplendent rays. At Mount Meru, we can choose to walk into a higher frequency, but that's if you make it past the Bifrost Bridge. In the Norse text Gylfaginning, the Bifrost Bridge is described as the pathway between heaven and earth, Asgard and Midgard.
There are many cosmological traditions around the world which share important features of Bhagavata cosmology. These include a cosmic axial mountain or pillar, which is often identified with a local mountain, such as Mount Olympus in Greece. These traditions also include other standard features, including those shown in this generic world model. The cosmology of the Bhagavatam and the Puranas is shared in its broad features by Buddhism, and it is widespread in the Buddhist countries of Asia. This East Asian picture depicts a square version of Mount Meru and the oceans and islands of Bhumandala, surmounted by planetary orbits. This Korean wheel map shows a central continent surrounded by a circular ocean and another circular continent. Joseph Needham, in his treatise on Chinese science, traces these wheel maps to India or Babylon. Here is a Babylonian wheel map. Wheel maps were also made in medieval Europe. In these Judeo-Christian maps, Jerusalem and the sacred hill called Mount Zion were identified as the world axis. Somehow or other, the tradition of Jambudweep seems to have influenced Gerardus Mercator, who placed a mountain surrounded by a circular continent at the north pole of his map of the Arctic region. The 4 perpendicular rivers or channels flowing from the central mountain correspond to the 4 branches of the celestial Ganges flowing from Mount Meru. Here is a Phoenician seal with a personified world mountain and 4 streams issuing forth at right angles. The Dogon tribe, living near the upper bend of the Niger River, posit a circular continent with a central pillar surmounted by the residence of their high god, Amma. Note the world-girdling serpent in the circular ocean. The ethnologist Evans Wentz identifies this Navajo sand painting as a representation of the 4 sacred directional mountains of the Navajos. In many traditions, the world mountain is surrounded by 4 mountains in the cardinal directions, and we also see this in the Bhagavatam and other Puranas. The color scheme is similar to that found in Puranic and Buddhist traditions. The 4 directional mountains of Jambudweep have 4 sacred trees on their summits. These include the Jambu tree, after which Jambudweep is named. The theme of a cosmic tree of life is very common, and this tree often grows on the world mountain or stands in place of it. Here we see the Scandinavian tree of life called Yggdrasil. The apocryphal biblical literature describes a tree of life with 4 rivers of honey, milk, oil, and wine that flow down into Eden. For comparison, the Bhagavatam has rivers of special juices flowing from its 4 sacred trees. This Assyrian seal shows the tree of life on the world mountain plus 2 sacred streams. In this East Asian picture, the tree of life stands upon the column of Mount Meru, centered on the ring pattern of Bhumandala. The Mayans of Central America have a tree of life that extends through 7 heavens, and they also speak of 5 lower worlds. Graded heavens and underworlds are found in many cosmologies, including that of the Bhagavatam. Here we see the cosmology of the Shipibo tribe of the Peruvian Mantea. This includes the tree of life, the circular continent and surrounding ocean, and the world-girdling serpent. The cosmology of the Warao of the Orinoco Delta also features a serpent of being that surrounds their world. Here we see the Norse serpent that surrounds Midgard, the inhabited world of Norse cosmology. The Bhagavatam places a universal serpent called Anantashesha beneath Bhumandala. He is generally depicted as supporting the earth from beneath, but the Mahabharata also says that he encircles her in his coils. The Bhagavatam places the cities of Brahma and the 8 Lokapalas on top of Mount Meru. Similarly, many traditions place the abode of the gods on top of their axial mountain or pillar. Here is the geometric layout of the cities of the 8 Lokapalas, or world guardians. These figure in the Vastu Purusha mandala used to lay out temples in traditional Indian architecture. The grid of the Vastu Purusha mandala is also associated with the nakshatra constellations marking the ecliptic. Thus the earthly side of a temple was connected with the heavenly realm of the ecliptic. The Bhumandala disk represents the exoteric domains of the earth and planets. In contrast, the cosmic axis, extending perpendicular to Bhumandala, is filled with esoteric meaning. It represents the path of ascent or descent of the soul. In addition to the orbits of the sun, moon, and planets, there are different worlds or lokas arrayed above Bhumandala along the cosmic axis. These upper worlds can be entered through mystic cities, and they are accessible only to persons of advanced spiritual consciousness. The Bhagavatam describes the vertical dimension of the Brahmanda as a universal form of God, extending from the lowest world at the soles of the feet to the highest at the crown of the head. In this traditional picture, we see the rings of Bhumandala forming the belt of the universal form. Here the positions of the worlds are indicated in relation to the universal form. The levels in the universal form are associated with the spinal chakras on which yogis meditate, and the spine itself is called Meru Danda, after Mount Meru, the cosmic axis. The ascent of the soul through different levels of the Brahmanda is analogous to the ascent of the life force through the chakras in the body. In general, the vertical dimension of the universe represents the path of ascent or descent of the soul through different worlds in different states of consciousness. It lies perpendicular to the plane of Bhumandala, which is the world of the planetary orbits.
We came here to explore a physical life, with physical bodysuits in a playground turned into a school on lockdown. We reincarnated over and over again, learning lessons about this place, about forms of parasitic consciousness, about our shadow selves, and how to exist within the entanglement of the Saturn-Moon matrix. We found where the Holy Grail is, realizing that the path to eternal life existed through the North Pole vortex, adjacent to Mount Meru, the wormhole into the paradise of many names. And we are now patiently waiting to make this journey a reality. Myself and a few others are taking the initial journey in the first quarter of 2018 to capture evidence and experiences and to calculate the exact route.